Alright, what is up, you guys? I'm here with the Andre the Giant HBO documentary review. I have waited for this for so long. I was so excited for this documentary to come out. I watched it yesterday, and it really did live up to expectations. I had very high expectations personally. This is not WWE released. This is an HBO documentary. So that's why I'm treating it as a film, basically. But all we ever really got was the Andre DVD there that was released by WWE. It's a one disc set. It's like over an hour long. And I've always wanted a good documentary or a good match compilation, and I am extremely satisfied with the documentary that we got, believe me. So this was advertised during WrestleMania. It kind of coincided with WrestleMania weekend. And, this documentary, it may not be WWE produced, but you do have all his colleagues, his peers. You have Hulk Hogan, you have Mean Gene Okerlund, you have Vince McMahon. And you see a side of Vince McMahon you really don't get. And it's very interesting seeing that. But what this documentary did a good job of showing is not only his wrestling career, a lot of people know that. Everyone knows where he started, his territory days, how he was a lumberjack when he first began. And a lot of people might not know that. But what this did really good at was showing what it was like being Andre the Giant. The character, the myth, the legend. And, he wanted to be a normal guy. He wanted to be treated like everyone else. He didn't want to get picked on. He didn't want to get laughed at, pointed at. It hurt him. And this did a really good job of showing that. And probably his best friend, referee Tim White, if you remember him, it interviewed, he had a lot of segments when it comes to interviews. And, you really saw the pain that Andre lived through. And Tim White conveyed that the best he could. And you also had Dave Meltzer making an appearance. That was kind of surprising to see. And, you actually get a lot of his family back in France talking about him and talking about his final days and his childhood. So, this obviously spans his entire career. You have when he was a teenager. You have the territory days. The king of the battle royal, and how he was this humongous attraction. And he was really a myth and a legend. And they kind of went into detail about that as well, which is a very interesting way to look at it. He was an attraction. He would go from place to place. And this was back when you didn't have the internet. Back when you didn't have the network. So you'd have to see this like behemoth of a wrestler in person, or on your local channel. This is before cable, and it did talk about the rise of cable and how it affected wrestling. It actually went into detail about Hulk Hogan's rise. A lot of people thought that was a negative. I didn't feel like it was a negative because I think you kind of needed that to get into the WrestleMania III segment of this. So I don't consider that a flaw. They might have went a little too into it, but I think it was necessary. But you had, it did talk about his relationship with Hulk Hogan even before WrestleMania 3, because they did wrestle many times, and they were a tag team. The WrestleMania 3, was the first time they ever wrestled. It wasn't, but in the world of the WWF, it was. You had to sell tickets, right? But it did talk very heavily about WrestleMania 3, very interesting stuff, and it was just so cool to go behind the scenes of WrestleMania 3, in my opinion, which is the biggest, not the best, but the biggest WrestleMania match in history. It's definitely not the best at all. It's a very basic match with a flashy finish, but I still think to this day, nothing can have the drawing power of that. So then obviously it talks about his career kind of spiraling down and, his health declining. And when your health is declining, You're not going to be in the ring as much. And this is where it really showed his pain. This is where it really showed what it was like day to day, traveling, being on movie sets, not being able to perform stunts on movie sets, like Princess Bride. And he even played Sasquatch early on in his career. And you had these just different interviews and stories of just how heartbreaking it was to be him and how much pain he was in and how selfless he really was. And some of the really cool stuff that this got into was his dislike for Macho Man. I just thought that was very interesting. And, just kind of who he was as a person. And it really psychologically pulled you in. And obviously it does talk about his death eventually and then his legacy. And his daughter is interviewed in this. Not much, but she's in it, which is nice to have. And it talks about him being a father and how he regrets not being able to be a father. But you respect and understand why he couldn't be a father. So, this documentary really, it's not asking for sympathy for him. It's just trying to show you that he should be appreciated for everything he did and the person he was. Alright, so if I had to rate this on a scale of 0 to 5, the way I always look at it is what it set out to do, which was teach you who Andre the Giant was, how it was done, quality-wise and production-wise, and how it grabbed you in. I was 100% there the entire time. There was not a dull moment in my opinion, and it was just so interesting to see who he was as a person, the myth, and a legend. And beautiful cinematography, great shots, great work, and some great interviews. And, I didn't really think it could teach me anything going into this, but I was wrong, it did. So I'm actually going to do something I really don't do very often, because I'm very picky, and I always see the faults in things. But I'm going to give this a perfect 5 out of 5. I thought this documentary was perfect when it comes to what it set out to do, and that was to teach you who he was and what it was like to be him, and why he should be appreciated. So, if you saw it, let me know what you thought, and, if you haven't seen it, please sit down and watch this. This is worth it. It's only like an hour and a half, so it's not going to eat up too much of your time, but definitely give some time to this, because it's one of the best wrestling documentaries I've ever seen. I think it's up there with Wrestling in Shadows. I think it's a little better than Beyond the Mat. Beyond the Mat was kind of but, it's up there with Wrestling in Shadows for me, which is my personal favorite. So, let me know what you guys thought of it. If you have seen it, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.